see. Excuse me while I adjust microphone. That's better. Okay. I cover the little thing that tells me how many people are here. I cover it up. That's why I reach across the screen like that, because I get preoccupied with the number and that's not very conducive to a good life experience, I don't think. And this string has to go. I don't know. There it goes. Okay, so I have some really bad news. My sister, younger than me, about a year, was killed in a car. I don't say accident. I start to, but I don't say accident because so far the report leans towards the other car, the car that hit hers, to be at fault. So that's not an accident. It fell off. If it falls off again, I'll just leave it. So, yeah, they were going through the intersection she was going through at a high rate of speed in a Camaro, and they got over into her lane enough that they hit her, and her car caught fire. And also there was a third car involved. It's still being investigated. The person that hit her car it had non-life-threatening injuries and is alive, and I'd really like to know why they were going so fast and why they killed my sister. She was 49. She died. Now, my dad told me she died on the way to the hospital. But the news articles say she died after she got to the hospital, so I'm not sure which. But to give you a little backstory on my sister, two of my sisters, I only knew her for about 4 years. But she knew about me her whole life. And I'm just gonna do this real quick in case, somebody watches and doesn't know the story. So my mom had me when she was 19. And my biological father, things just didn't work out for him to stay. I don't. That's their business. I don't know what really went on. But after I was born, he wanted to have a relationship with me, but my grandparents and parents weren't letting it happen. And when I was 2, my mom married another man. He became my dad. He's who raised me, so I have 2 dads. He's who raised me. He's the person with, my name. I have his name. He adopted me, and um I'm I love him very much. Um and But unbeknownst to me, my biological father had been looking for me the whole time, but could not find me because my mom didn't have her maiden name anymore, and he didn't know who she married and what their name was. And so for years and years and years, he went through phone books, yearbooks. He became a substitute teacher, so maybe scope the schools out. And so um, my mom went back to her maiden name, and for about 5 years ago, and so they decided to have another look on Facebook, and they found her, and then they found me, and then they contacted me, and we met, and I had go out there. I have gone out there every year for a visit, um, and except for last year, I couldn't because of COVID. They live like next to Detroit, like right at the airport, so they had more going on. So anyway, we all met, and I go out to visit, and we communicate on Facebook and stuff, phone calls. I talk to my biological dad all the time on the phone and text him and stuff. Um, so it's really just um, what I want to talk about is death. I have problems with death and people dying. Well, first of all, it's a certain kind of like my grandparents, they had issues that slowly took them from us, but we knew it was happening. They knew it was happening. Um, and they'd lived full lives, and it was traumatic, but that's different. I have had, I am kind of tired of my siblings dying too young. I, um, my very youngest brother committed suicide when he was 15. Um, my dad, um, found him in the basement. That sucked. Um, and then my and another sister through the same dad. My family tree is like so crazy. Um, she died from like alcoholism and addiction in her 30s, I think. And I never met her, but my sisters from Michigan knew her, and they tried to help her. Um, but it wasn't. Anyway, and then my brother, who I did the series on, um, Juice, Justin, he was 44, and his was alcoholism. And now, Shane. And I have to to say that she was fortunate in the fact that she had deep faith, religion, I God and all that goes with it. And I talk like I don't know what I'm talking about because I don't. I grew up in a household where religion wasn't even I never we didn't go to church. We didn't talk about God. It was not something that I grew up with. I had a friend who was Catholic, and when she came to my house to show me first communion dress, I was super jealous and I wanted to go to church because she would get dressed up and look really nice and they'd go to church, and so I wanted to do that too. But um I was a kid, I didn't know um what it really was about. And but yeah, my mom is an atheist, and she told me that organized religion is brainwashing. So that is what I grew up with. When I became a nurse, I noticed I was an oncology nurse and I took care of cancer patients, and a lot of them died. I mean, a lot of them we'd see them when they were diagnosed, through treatment and through death. And either they already had this established relationship with some higher power, um, or they developed it while thinking and introspecting. Um, there were, you know, you might use the term found God, but I noticed that the people that spoke about, well, I pray and that gives me strength, and I'm going to heaven with God. Those people were more, seemed more comfortable with the idea of dying. And I saw it all. I saw there was this one woman that she didn't want heavy narcotics or sedatives because she said that dying was a part of life and she wanted to experience it all. So, um, and I saw people fight it. They got a diagnosis, there's nothing they can do. Hospice is the only thing we can offer, and you can just see them fighting against death. My um I have a lot of fears and panic about death. I have panic attacks about death. When I get prescribed a new medication and I take it at night and it's the first time I take it, I I have a hard time falling asleep. I don't wanna fall asleep because 'cause I'm afraid this new medication is gonna kill me in my sleep. See, to me, death isn't death. To me, death is disappearing. Just like poof, you're gone. And it I mean, where do you go? Um, it's like telling someone, "Okay, now picture this in your head. The universe never ends." It hurts your head. And I'm like, I'm like, uh, my dad said, see, my they couldn't find her. She wasn't coming home. Nobody could get a hold of her. So they got in cars, and my dad went in the route she would have taken to come home. And and he came upon the accident, and he saw her in that state, that pretty broken up shape. She was still alive. And she said something about going to see God. Um, and I'm like, well, I feel if if she had if fate were that she has to die, then I am happy that she felt some peace with it, with the idea of going somewhere. I don't have that. um, I'm not looking for religion. I'm, not looking to see the light or anything. I'm I have really one question, and I tried to Google it, and I got information that only made me feel more uncomfortable. Um, my my fear is about people knowing they're dying when they are dying. Now, I mean, like, in the instant, long range, like, okay, I get diagnosed with this terminal illness, I know I'm dying. No, I mean, like, in the very instant, how do you feel about it? Are you frightened? I'm terrified of that moment, and, um, I'm like, "Well, maybe." See, like, when you have, a broken bone or something, your brain will send out pain-killing neurotransmitters to give you about 15 minutes worth of not feeling the pain, so you can get out of danger, find some shelter, and then it starts hurting. And I'm like, well, maybe our brains are equipped it to such a way that when we die, are dying in the very process of dying, um, maybe our brain sends out some dopamine or just something that soothes us and makes us feel better, um, about the fact that we're dying. And I really had a problem with this when my brother died, because even though he died technically from alcoholism, the thing that killed him, which is not uncommon because of the heart damage, is like sudden fatal, there's a whole long term fatal arrhythmia. Like you get it and you die. That's just boom, sudden boom. But I was like terrified of the thought that he was walking along with his dog, walking his dog, taking his dog potty. And did he have a moment where he was like, something's not right? I'm dying. Did he know? And because I knew him very well, if he knew what was happening, unless the brain somehow is sending us something to soothe us, he would have been terrified. So I Googled something, some question like, do we know when we're dying? Are we aware? And what I got was, did you know for about 7 minutes, if they take off life support, you're still conscious in your head for about 7 minutes? That there was differing time frames that I found, but they all said that. And I'm like, oh, thank you for just upsetting me and freaking me out even more. Because I know that if I were dead physically, but I was still aware, they said that, like, you're dead. And I'm like, well, that can't be a very comfortable place. Why would the last space of brain of in your mind be terror? So, I'm just hoping that when it's happening, our brain knows to give out some chemicals to make us feel good about it. I took before I took Seroquel XR, I took regular Seroquel, and it would cause my heart to pound in my chest, and it was terrifying. I would have so many bedtime panic attacks. I called when my mom lived in Texas, and I'm in Missouri, and I'd call her, and and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like terrified because I lived alone except for my dog. Um, and I talked to my doctor, and they just gave me Xanax to take with the Seroquel. So I'm like, that's not going to keep it from killing me. Now that I take the XR, the extended release, there's not. They found out they didn't. I had to go through a few doctors for them to find that side effect, because it wasn't really that it was doing something to my heart rate. It was widening my blood vessels so that my blood pressure was going down and my heart had to beat harder to keep things flowing. But I swear I could see it in my chest, and I was just absolutely terrified. I mean, I was terrified I was going to die, but what I was mostly terrified of is I was going to die alone. Okay, so sometimes I get these weirdings about dying, and I'll just be going about my freaking day, and I could die, and then it dawns on me I can die at any minute. It could be me next that they make phone calls about, "Oh my god, she was just up there dusting her TV and just fell to the floor." Um, I have to drive places. I have driving panic attacks if I have to go in the city. And so even in town, I'm like, I can be, now that this has happened to my sister, And I'm not, I feel a little bad about talking about me, but I'm talking about death, really. I'm conscious of the fact that I can be following all the rules and be a good person, uh, following the rules, and somebody else isn't. And they can come flying through an intersection. Maybe they're high, maybe they're drunk, maybe they're just 20 and speeding, testing out their Corvette. The guy, I had someone hit my car and damage it pretty well, and I went to the ER, but I was okay. I was just probably dizzy from the experience. But he was on his phone. Somebody could be on the phone and the car just veers a little into your lane, and I mean, the house can catch on fire while you're asleep. Monoxide poisoning. I'm I see death everywhere. And so, and you put my social anxiety on top of it, it is just really difficult for me to function. Um, I the most, I'm looking a little, um, wound up. Um, I My favorite part of the day is when I've taken my medication, because I take Xanax at night. I I have I usually just take it at night, but for a few days now, I've had to take it during the day too. But I take my medication and I don't feel the anxiety, and I can go to bed, and I'm in my room. Not the one you see me in, mostly in my computer room, but in my bedroom. And I shut the door and I feel the safest there. But I still don't feel safe. I say safer. I feel safer. But I still know I'm 50. When I was a nurse, there are people who had major strokes, just blew out of the blue. I have some really creepy death stories, people saying cryptic things right before they died. This one man was saying, "I'm going home. I'm going home." And we're like, "Yeah, yeah, we're just here to turn you over onto the other side." And he died like right there. And a woman who was in her 50s, and she had a major stroke, and she was still alive, but she couldn't she wasn't alive. Um, she was there, breathing, and her heart was beating, but no more. And her 3 sisters came in at the end of her bed, and they all were talking about she never would have wanted to be like this. And they were having that conversation, and we came in and we're doing some things, and then I said, "Well, can you step out of the room just a moment, please, so we can um, reposition her." And she died while we were repositioning her. And I think it is my belief that she heard them and knew it was okay. to go. And, you know, as nurses, when we have patients that it just seems like they're hanging on, we'll go in, we'll sit down, hold their hand, and we'll tell them it's okay to go ahead, because there are a lot of people who die. This is my biggest problem. And there's nobody there with them. Nobody visits them. But my biggest fear is dying alone. And I think of my brother when he died. Someone found him and he had already been dead. And I always pictured, I knew he was going to die young. Alcoholism. But I thought it would be a slower liver failure type thing, but it was a heart thing. And I thought, I had no idea. I have had panic attacks so bad about dying alone that, I live in a house and my mom, she occupies the downstairs and I occupied the upstairs. I one time had such a panic attack, like this long, drawn out panic attack about dying up in my room by myself. And I tried coming down and just laying on the couch, thinking that would make me feel better being on the first floor, but it just wasn't helping, and I was terrified. And I was ashamed, but I went in, I'm like, "Mom, can I please lay down with you in your room? Because I'm just having such a bad panic attack and I can't be alone." And so, when I lived in that little apartment, I was by myself. And I liked it a lot, but when I would have the panic attacks, the nighttime dying panic attacks, and I'm like, "I'm gonna die in here and nobody's gonna know, and they're gonna wonder why they can't reach me and call the apartment manager and the police to do a check," and, I mean, scenarios playing out in my head. Anyway, um, I don't know. I don't know about a heaven. I don't know about a hell. Um, I think there's plenty of hell and here on earth. But at the same time, I would say more spiritual, because at the same time, I just can't. I mean, I really do not feel like there is a heaven or hell. But I just I feel like we can't just end, and I feel more like we transfer into some spiritual, um what is that term for when with bees and collective, uh, um sort of transfer into a collective, um I can't think, I'll use the word energy. um I think that's kind of how I feel about, um that some people are deemed good enough to not just disappear. And some people who maybe were really awful and they do disappear and end right then. I've had things happen that I do believe in good and evil. And, um, like, I do believe there are exceptional people out there that are good and that there are ec um, horrible evil. And I don't know if alright, my connection's getting weird. I don't know if, people per se are evil, but something inhabiting them is evil, maybe. Maybe that's how I would put it, because I have had an experience that I'm not I don't think I'm gonna talk about. I know that when we talk about my brother, I mean, is memory the memory of somebody? Is that where they go in our memories or in our visions? Because I know we talk about my brother all the time. We talk about him all the time, and we all say how he's got to be. There is just no way that he is not on a beach somewhere. Cause like, sunny skies and, um, friends and, just the element that, he came alive in. And so maybe that's what I mean by the collective energy, um, of all of us. I think my impressions and ideas are sort of they're part religious, no, part spiritual and part sci-fi, and I'm not kidding. Um, like you might have watched it on an X-File, because they brought those themes together sometimes. Uh, and when I think of my brother and my sister, I automatically think of the happy times. My memories are of the times of that I spent with them when I saw them laughing and smiling. Um, but my concern is also I would be I would feel really good if, I died and people thought of me, um, and they, pictured me doing whatever I would be doing. What what would I be doing? I would probably be in a meadow with dogs, you know? But, the thing is I don't have any children, and all the people I'm related to are getting older as well. So I may not have anyone to remember me. And that makes me sad. Um, also makes me very, very worried about when I get old and decrepit, who's gonna take care of me? Am I gonna get abused by some horrible person working in a horrible nursing home? But, I have that anxiety. And I keep trying to tell myself things like, worry about today. Just deal with the things today and just do it day to day. Like AA. Maybe I need to start going to AA. Turn it over to my higher power. I have no control and and take each day. I don't know. Sounds like good advice. I try to do that, but my mind always wanders to the, "Oh my god, this is gonna happen, that's gonna happen, it's gonna be horrible." Um, and I think my biggest fear, is of being forgotten. I'm terrified of being forgotten. Um, not many people know me. Not many people know me well. I'm very closed. I think that people on YouTube that watch my videos probably know me better than the people that see me in person. And and then there is the issue of cremation. It seems my mom has told me she wants to be cremated. And everybody we cremated my brother and my nana and papa are cremated and they're here. All our pets are cremated. You might think it's kinda creepy how many urns that I made out of wood, painted and decorated for our pets. We have several, and kinda is creepy, but I need to have I cannot let people go. I have to have a physical part of them to feel okay because I don't want to lose them. And but the interesting thing is I don't wanna be cremated. And I have told my mom, and she was shocked at first, which I guess people could nobody's gonna know me hopefully, when I die, but I'm like, "No, the most important thing for me is that I wanna be buried. You can bury me in the cheapest box you find, but my headstone, I don't want it to be one of those flat headstone they're flat even with the ground, you know? I I just find them sad, and they can get overgrown so easily. I'm like, "No, I want a headstone standing up." I want it to be the one where people go to a cemetery and they're like, "Wow, look at that." And they might come over and read who I was, what my name was, and when was born and when I died. I just I just being forgotten is my biggest fear. You can still and so that covers both dying and being forgotten or just, the people that knew you are gone. Um, or even you can still be alive and be forgotten. Um, anyway, so I'm desperately trying to figure out the answer to, I don't know, maybe I'm gonna have to start reading what people have to say that have had near death experiences or death experiences. Um, I don't know. I'd number one, I hope while we're dying, there are chemicals in our brain that ease us into it. And number two, I hope that there is some plane of existence for us to be after we're gone from this world, to just inhabit a place of happiness and calm. That would be my heaven, is to be calm, to be at ease, to be comfortable, to relax physically and mentally. That's what I would that would be my heaven. And to be outside in the sun, yeah, with dogs. I'm I'm so anxious around people. That I think my heaven would not include them. Maybe there's an adjacent heaven that, my heaven is adjacent to, and I'm just using the word heaven so I can have a word that I can visit my brother in his heaven on the beach. And, I think Shane, my sister, well, if I wanted to really, she would be with her God, and um in a place of light and warmth, and comfort and peace, and be able to see the good times her kids go through down here on earth. See her daughter get married, those kinds of things. So, that is my, um that's what I'm dealing with right now. And it's as I just, like, bounce back and forth between being okay and not okay, and just as um, there's there's a little bit of good going on, but there's a lot of bad going on. I'm sure that when the weather turns, I will be a happier person. So, um, I think that I'm going to end this here. Um, thank you. Thank you. Um, I really actually brought tissue because I thought I would cry through this whole thing. Um, I do a little bit of delayed grief where, like, 5 days after the event, I fall apart. So, I'm expecting that to happen in a few days. Um, so good night to you all. Thank you very much, Songs of Light. Yeah. Good night, everybody.